Slurpy jerp, my G's. Hope you're all doing super well. And yeah, it's great to be back in Berlin. Weather's been excellent at the moment. Got a wicked faceplant preset for you guys today. I think this is going to be on a new pack of mine that I'm designing, which is, I'm going to say, I always say this, but it's going to be the best pack that I've ever made of any synth preset packs, because it's just sounding so sick so far, and using the granular synthesis in faceplant has just leveled everything up. So I'm going to probably call it the Reckoning or something. I thought about naming the pack after this specific preset actually, because I called it the Wall of Reckoning, because it just sounded so epic. But yeah, how are you guys doing? Hope you're doing well. I'm sorry I didn't bring any fruit to throw around today. Probably need to go back to the shops. But yeah, I've got a question for you guys actually. What's your favourite modern Neurofunk producer? Those of you who are into Neurofunk like me. I think two of mine at the moment I really rate are Slowdown and Secular. They're both so sick, and they're not. I think they're becoming a bit more well known now, but they were a bit sort of undiscovered still in the last year or so. But they're really amazing. And the reason I mention that is because when I was designing this bass, it reminded me of like a kind of Slowdown bass. I don't ever try to make a bass like someone else, because I literally just experiment randomly and see what comes out. But I guess in some ways, you know, influences and things creep through when you're making the little decisions, when you're tweaking stuff. So yeah, it's got a little bit of a modern Neurofunk edge to it, this sound. I'll play it to you quickly, and I've got a little macro I can shift around as well, I think. So here's the sort of main preset then. And then with our sort of macro up here. So these really sort of dark, aggressive, textural Neurofunk basses. They're a nice combination of yeah, darkness, aggressiveness, bassiness, but also a little bit of organic texture in the high end. So if you hear it on its own, it's beautiful here, and also at the faster speed. It just sounds like an epic wall of just mayhem, doesn't it? That's why I call it the Wall of Reckoning. And yeah, I've generated a really cool AI image to go along with that, which I'll probably use for the preset pack. But yeah, so let's dive into the sound design then, I suppose. So what I will say, which makes this patch a little bit difficult to copy, I suppose, is I've used some samples for the granular section from my own sample library. And I'm really interested in using natural textures and materials and things like that. So I've got, in this case, I've got like a wooden kind of sound here. And if I can maybe play this on its own, I'm just going to go into my own lane and switch off everyone else's lane. And because everyone is in their own lane, remember. And that's a bit of life advice for you in case you want it, you know. Whenever you feel yourself comparing yourself to anyone else, just remember that everyone's in their own lane, and just focus on your fucking lane and drive your car in a straight line, okay? Don't worry about what other people are doing. That's how I live life anyway, when you know, most of the time. So what are we actually modulating then? We've only got one LFO, which is quite simple, I suppose. And I think there must be a little bit of movement in the... Okay, that's interesting, because normally I put a bit of movement in the granular section. In this case, it's mostly movement in the effects, and we've also got a bit of movement on the phase amounts, the FM amount. So this is going to be something... Well, it's something that I've been using a lot in the design of my latest presets here. Is yeah, running the granular setting, the granular sound through like a sine wave or something with the FM, and then modulating the amount of the FM to create the main sort of dynamic movement to the sound. So when you put it in here, okay, it's modulating up and down on the phase, you know, so that's where the main kind of movement's coming from. So anyway, it's just a wooden texture. But yeah, one thing I wanted to note actually, and so I've got a little bit of a movement on the macro where it just changes the position of the sample very slightly. Yeah, and it also changed the length of the grains here. So that's how we're changing the sound for our macro. We're adjusting the settings in the granular synth for that. But the main kind of movement, like I said, is coming just from the FM amount here. Okay. So a little bit complicated, I know. We've got a bit of white noise too, obviously. Should probably put that on the LFO as well. That'd probably make it even better. I could do that now quickly. Just a little 3% here. I'll leave 1% on, so we've always got a little bit of noise. But that's a bit tighter now because it's going in line with everything else. But anyway, a little trick I wanted to show with you guys is if you because when you're doing the granular synthesis, it's very, a little movement in the sample is going to often create a completely different sound, especially when your grains are like really like kind of short, like they are here, 1.2. It's quite small grains, small area that you're working with. So a little shift in the position can make a big difference. So if you hold shift while on your keyboard while you're moving it, you'll see here you get a little preview of the waveform almost, and you can get really precise with it. So if I play it again here. So you could almost sort of shift back and forth a little bit while you listen and see if you can get that sort of extra bass to come in. When everything lines up properly, you will get a bit of a louder impact on the bass hit sometimes, So it's worth doing, worth getting a nice zoomed in adjustment just by holding shift and moving things around there. So that's sick. Okay. So that's basically what we got then. My wooden texture. I recommend you guys, if you're going to do it, just load in your own add location and load in your own sample pack. And, I've got loads of sample packs, but I'm sure you guys can get some. There's loads of free sample packs as well. You can get some sound effects, Foley, stuff like that. I'd recommend interesting Foley packs with like a lot of high-end textures. That kind of stuff will work well in granular synthesis usually. So go for some interesting weird stuff. Because remember, you're chopping... the grains are really small anyway, and the parts that you select. If you have a file that's got like loads of different sound effects in it, then it's going to be really easy to skip around until you find like a setting that just sounds dope with like your sine wave. So get some really crazy sound effects, textures with loads of like audio information. Throw a folder of that in. And, it doesn't really matter what it is, to be honest, as long as there's loads of things to choose from. That's the main part. So, yeah, get yourself a nice folder in there, and then you can start FMing it into your sine wave, and then you can start to come up with some wicked basses like that. So anyway, we got a global unison. So here I'm just modulating the blend, so the stereo spread kind of... well, it's not the spread, but it's the amount of unison that we're using. Basically, we're just modulating that in. So a little bit of a variation in there. But it's quite a simple unison. Just adds a bit of extra stereo warmth. So let's jump over to our effects then. And yeah, no real right or wrong way to structure the effects. I always just kind of go with the flow, really. So I'll like think, when I hear the sound, like I'll just think like, what do I want to add to it now? And then I'll just do that, and then sometimes I'll switch them around and try things in a different order. But, first thing I often do is a bit of distortion, because distortion always like glues everything together. And when you've done like, you've got your sine wave FMs, you've got your grain thing, you've got your noise, the unison. It's a lot of stuff already. So I often like to straight away sort of glue it all together with distortion. So that's why I like to do that first sometimes. So there's the hard clip mode. I've got a little bit of movement on my drive, so a little bit bumpy on that. Okay, then I've got the non-linear filter, and again, just like I said before, like you can skip around the different modes and just hover your mouse over them while it's playing. That warm one sounds cool, but I had it on Think Metallic. Yeah, it's just... Again, there's really no right or wrong, but with this one, it really it boosted the lows and it added this crunch to the highs, and it just sounded sick for me, that one. But I think the warm would be my second choice. It's a bit cleaner though. But yeah, the metallic one just really brightened everything up a lot. So that was a big part of this sound anyway. So that's a great thing to play with the non-linear filter there. Then we'll go on to lane 2. And normally always going to add in a bit of reverb, even if it's a small amount, because it just, you know, makes things natural. So here's 4%. And it's really, it's the high-end kind of reverb. So the Eerie loading dock or whatever it is, that's one of the presets. I like that one because it adds a lot of high-end. When you turn up the tone, it's going to be even more high-end. And yeah, just blending that in a little bit, it's like I get some extra high-end harmonics coming in, and they're sort of stereoed and wide already as well. Then ensemble, I love that. I've recently found that the sine mode kind of sounds better for me on most sounds as opposed to the symmetric I think it starts on. The sine one, it was a little bit more powerful, a little bit more coherent. And although like now it's too much and there's a lot of voices, when I mix that back down, you know, 11%. Yeah, it's always a good way to yeah, spread things together so you get a nice width across everything. Just a little bit though. Again, because I've done sort of some stereo stuff and like kind of weakening the sound a bit, I'll boost it up again with some distortion here. So a little bit of overdrive this time, just a different mode. And yeah, it's on the drive again, a bit of modulation. So we got a nice bumpy drive. I mean, tarmac your bumpy drive, mate. And yeah, lane 3, we're moving quickly now. This is the comb filter. Sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. But in this case, it sounded sick. Just moves all of the harmonics, you know, fucking, oh sorry, YouTube friendly. It really exaggerates like everything at once. You know, it's pretty full-on effect, so you got to be careful with it. And yeah, I've gone for a low frequency, and I've modulated the pitch, the kind of frequency pitch to go up and down. You know, and 50%, and modulating the mix to come up and down. So often it sounds better at just when you leave it at 100, but here. Yeah, this one, it just lended itself to the whole dynamics of the sound when I just mixed the comb filter on and off a bit. So, yeah, recently, like before in the last few videos, I didn't think that it was good to have the mix at 50%, but obviously I might have been wrong there because here it kind of just sounds better when you mix it on and off a little bit, you know? So again, there's no golden rule, but yeah, it just kind of worked for me here when it's kind of coming on and off on the mix a bit too. Yeah, a little trick I popped on my Instagram as well. It's not like anything crazy, but yeah, I often put a high shelf on the sound at the end, like when it comes to the end of the kind of patch, because yeah, often I've done like a lot of filtering or you know, I've kind of aimed for a sort of more bassy, powerful sound, so I might sometimes have sacrificed a bit of high end throughout the process. So just bringing that up again, making sure everything's nice and bright, and I use this opportunity often to add a bit more of a dynamic edge to the sound by, instead of just doing a normal high shelf boost, I'll just put the high shelf gain on the LFO as well. So nice and bumpy in the high end brightness, my G's. Then a bit of dual delay at the end. So this is a lovely effect. Just get a little bit of a delay in there, kind of quite fast and not too long, but we really just bring the tail into the sound in a really small amount, like 3%. You can see my reverbs as well, sort of 4%, delay 3%. It's really just to add a little natural finish to the sound. It's not to go crazy with the kind of spatial effect, you know? But yeah, just having that little tail on the end just makes the whole thing sound much more professional. So yeah, that's the Wall of Reckoning bass then. I think I've explained everything fairly well, I hope. Really sick. What I've done in the macros on the Sloan mode here, so I basically changed I wanted to slow everything down. So I wanted to change the speed of the LFO. So I bring that down, but then when I'm bringing that down, it doesn't really match up with the kind of grains and everything anymore, you know, because the grains have their own movement on, which is going into the sine wave, and that's sort of done by ear. And I've then sort of matched the LFO ramp to basically go with the movement of the grains, like by ear. So I've kind of like DJ'd it together in a way, you know. So when I'm like changing the speed on the ramp now, I've got to change the like sort of length of the grains so the speed will match up. So that's why you've got loads here, and I've had to do it. I've had to DJ it again by ear. So slowed the rate down and increased the length of the grains. Yeah, because obviously a slower LFO movement, if you want the grains to be slower, you'll have to make them longer. So the longer grain will be also a slower rhythm, you know. So turning up the length of the grains and down this and making the LFO slower, and then because this like changing in speed, it'll often, you know, it might change the sort of tone of the patch as well, obviously, because the timings are all different. So you might get some different sort of tonality as well. So that's why I've sometimes add a few extra things. Like sometimes I'll, you know, I'll feel like I've lost, you know, the rhythm's cool now because it's slow, but it's got a bit quiet now. So I'll just like drive up the distortions a bit, or add like a bit of filter, change the filter cutoff position, or added a bit of more high end in, and just a couple of extra things just to like, finish off that sort of part B version of the preset, you know? So this is a nice, it's a sick, like, two versions of the preset. But yeah, I've had to do a bit of extra work on the second one to make sure it's like up to scratch with the first one, you know? So anyway, yeah, that's the Wall of Reckoning then. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that tutorial today, my G's. Yeah, the Reckoning phase plant preset pack will be out very, very soon. I hope you guys will grab that as well and support. I'll probably do a live stream around then. And what else is there to say? Yeah, if you're new to the channel or you haven't subscribed yet, please make sure you do, because it really helps me out a lot. And if you fancy joining Patreon at any point, you're always more than welcome. You can even pop in for just €1 a month, and there's loads of free content you'll get just from that as well. Like there's little preset packs, there's like some bonus videos, and that's not a lot of money, so I don't feel too bad asking you to do that, so do it now. And yes, one-on-one mentorship is always available as well. All you have to do is go to my website, click mentorship, and then you can access my online calendar. Book yourself in. You have to pay in advance, and then you will see me, my beautiful face, on the other side of your computer screen. Well, hopefully on your computer screen. You know, maybe with a mustache, maybe with sunglasses, maybe with a funny hat. Who knows what I'll be wearing? But I'll definitely be teaching you to the best of my abilities to level up your production process as well, and help you on your journey and whatever you're struggling with at the time. So anyway, thanks a lot for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Peace out.